Hi, Panos, and welcome back to these conversations. Now it's becoming like a regular appointment. You know, I'm looking forward to this time.
Yeah, I kind of miss them now, you know.
Anyway,
I look forward. Where's the next one?
Right.
How are you? How are you today?
I'm very good, and I'm ready for this conversation, which I believe can help us even look at the other conversation through a new light. Now, this is what I'm thinking. You know, we've gone through a lot of things, and last time actually we touched on snapping out of automatic pilot and getting into the flow, and these two terms have been in my mind these days. You know, I've been thinking about them, and you know, I can see, you know, the automatic pilot as the comfort zone. Like, you know, we're in a comfort zone, and I see the flow being outside of the comfort zone, and the fact that to get to the flow there's a rough passage. And you know, I like for you to expand on this type of concept, and also even give the reason why, you know, we would want to get out of the comfort zone into the flow, and what are the byproducts or whatever happens when we're out there, you know, which is not like the reason probably we go out, but then out there we might find something that it's really important. So let's take it from there.
Okay.
You go ahead.
Okay, so to start off with, right, let us consider a simple example. If we look at what people watch on TV, okay, a lot of men like sport, women like soap operas, whatever the case may be, right? There's a thing called mirror neurons. On the right side of the brain, there's a structure in the mind, in the brain itself, whose job is to look particularly at a person's face, okay, the whole body actually, but the face in particular, and replicate, in my experience, looking at you, replicate in my experience the way it feels to be like whatever it is you're doing. Now, sportsmen, the real good ones, or good actors for that matter, anybody who's in a state of flow, because if the guy's got the ball and he's dribbling and he's doing whatever, is in a state, Messi, you know what I mean? He's in a state of flow. Okay. Similarly, a good actor, if they're in the role, you can feel the experience. So this is what we want. We want that state. Now, most people don't know how to get that state, so they rely on others, watching sport, watching movies, and so on, which is fine. The other side of the coin, from what we've seen so far, is that when the average person turns their attention, what we call inside, in their own mind, they normally come face to face with all their problems. And again, there's reasons for that. From an evolution point of view, you want to deal with your problems first. You can't be thinking, ah, never mind, and you know. And so the average person, when you say to them, look inside, they close their eyes, and then all their worries jump on them. Okay? And we spoke about this earlier. I'm just going to repeat the little metaphor. It's like here in South Africa, the sea is actually the ocean. So if you want to launch a boat, if you want to put a boat from the land onto the water, you have to get through about 50 or more meters, 100 meters of waves. There are big waves. You have to get through them. They call the breakers. You have to get through the breakers. Once you're out into the open sea, it's fine. So you have to get through this initial period or area of suffering. Now, most people, when they look inside, they come face to face with that and they run away. They never go further. And so I think part of today's discussion is simply to highlight two things. First, hey, don't worry. Behind this space of anxiety, fear, whatever it is, or the problem state, there's the other state. Which is the other state? The state of flow. Okay?
Now, let me stop.
Why is this desirable? We don't have to explain. You just know how good it feels to be in the state when you're watching something on TV, or even when you yourself are in an amazing state where you are completely at one with things. You are creative, you are effective, you're seeing opportunities, your mind is open, new ideas come, whatever you need. So this is the ideal. This is where we want to go. And I'm suggesting, as we've said before, this is a natural state that already exists. We just got to find the button. We just got to find the road. We've got to open the door to get in there. It's there. Now, it's not something outside. It's inside. So that's the topic.
Let me stop you right there, just a second. So you're saying, you know, the breakers. You're talking about the breakers as the waves, you know, and we got to go through the breakers for ourselves also, you know. One thing, you know, I know that we all have a comfort zone, and we all have a preferred area to stay in, and even the way we work is to defend ourselves from what's uncertain, what bothers us, you know, trying to keep ourselves, you know, in a place where we get the least resistance from the outside. And so that's where we are now. when you talk about going through the breakers, are we talking about, yeah, one side could be real problems, but one side could be really, you know, facing the unknown or facing, you know, our own insecurities, our own fears. So those are, do you think those are part of the breakers? I mean, when we get out,
Yes.
when we want to get out of the comfort zone, I understand the why, but
Yes.
you know, let's define what stops us usually to get out of the comfort zone, you know, because anybody, if you tell them, you know, do you want to get out of your comfort zone to be a better person or whatever, they might say yes, but you know, why it's so difficult to get out of it? You know, why those breakers are so strong? I mean, what are they, and can we define some of them? You know?
Okay. So again, another metaphor, another image is this. If I want to look at something which is far away, I use binoculars, right? Or if I want to look into something, this is the conversation we're having, so I'm going to go with that metaphor. If I want to look into something, I need a microscope. Now, what does a microscope do? It takes the light from a small space and makes it bigger. It gives me the opportunity to look into something. Okay, so a glass lens, a traditional microscope, right, gives me the ability to focus my eyes, and my mind obviously, to look into something. Now, an intense, unpleasant experience has the same effect at the mental level. In other words, if I'm really desperate about something, I don't want to know anything else. I don't want to go to the movies. I don't want to go for supper. I don't want to be with people that I like. I just got this huge problem. You know, if it's a life and death thing, or depression, or some serious anxiety, or whatever it is, nothing else is important. Now, this is my opinion, and I'm not generalizing it. We're talking general terms here. I believe that's a missed opportunity. Most people come to that place. In other words, they come to the place in the ocean where the waves are still there, and they go back. I'm suggesting there's an alternative. And again, we're not talking heavy clinical cases where they need medication. I'm not talking that. I'm talking average person having a normal life. There's the possibility, if the person is shown, you have to see this, otherwise you're not going to believe it, right? To go through that, using it to take you to the deeper level that we're talking about. In other words, what I'm saying is a normal state of anxiety as we experience it, I assume daily or weekly or monthly or yearly, whenever it is an opportunity for us to go to the next level, which is the state of flow, which is the state of inspiration, which is the state of creativity, just behind it. Again, I could argue, as a theoretical argument, that why else would a state of anxiety have evolved in a person's brain over years and years? If you want to take evolution, if you want to take God, why did God create anxiety and all that? I mean, if it doesn't have a positive result, it doesn't make sense. Why would something evolve to cut you down? So I'm proposing, and I'm not the only one, I'm just saying it, is that the thing that we're experiencing as a difficulty is actually an opportunity. And the how, as we discussed before, we want to amplify it today, is to put our attention on the experience so that see what happens afterwards. That's the summary of it.
So let me see if I get it right here. So when we have difficulties, we can have one of two reactions, basically, or responses, basically.
Yes.
One is a reaction which is like trying to shrink my world to defend myself from whatever I perceive as a problem, you know. And that's
Yes.
one way, but that way shrinks my world to the place I can remain tied and by myself. The other opportunity is to embrace that and do it in such a way that I can go through the problem and
Yes.
find a state of flow on the other side that allows me, independently from the circumstances, to get back my flow, my experience of life, and my creativity, and everything I need to be able to have a full life, basically a life worth living. Let's put it that way.
Correct. Yeah, quite absolutely so. You see, again, the key word here is consciously. I mean, for example, there's an alternative. If you happen to be a really religious person with great faith, leave it in the hands of God, they say, which means someone else must do it. Okay, that's also good. Nothing wrong with that. But it's sort of left to someone else, as it were. Here, what we're talking about is for those people who have an effect on their own experience. In other words, if you're a religious person, whatever your problem is, give it to God. That's fine. We're done. Nothing more to say. But if you're that kind of person that thinks, wait a minute, I'm not sure about this. Is there anything else? It's for these This is the kind of conversation we're having.
Right, and I
And
think,
so,
just one second, on the religious side, probably that's a way they use to be able to detach from the burden of the problem. So
yes,
it's one
yeah.
way to educate your mind not to get lost in concern, and I think that
You see, I mean, to make this really simple, not complicated with religion or anything, right? If you take a child, like a 5-year-old who's got a problem, well, they run to the parents because they haven't got the brain structures or the experience or whatever you want to call it to deal with it themselves. After the age of 25, when the brain is kind of settled, more or less, you expect the person to be self-reliant, to be able to take care of their own things. We're talking about that thing because a person can be any physiological age. They can be 30, they can be 100, doesn't matter. But emotionally, they can be 10. Those people, they need faith, they need other means to deal with their problems because they haven't perhaps yet come to the stage to be able to directly and personally deal with what's going on. So I'm making this clear up front because somebody might argue, but who can do this, one might say. And I'm saying, well, anyone can do it, provided they think or feel that they're willing to listen and apply it.
And just to be fair to some of the people, because I've been part of a religious world, and there are two types of religiosity. One is the one you explained, which is going to God because He can satisfy my needs, and the other type of religiosity, which I believe is actually very productive, is like giving my life to be a value in this world and just make a difference. So
Yeah.
there are two types of religiosity, which I believe, the one that I go to God for the things I need is more instrumental religiosity. It's like using God, to get rid of my problem, which I don't agree with that. It doesn't feel part of me. But on the other side, when I see people giving their life to give value, to generate value for them and for others around it, that type of religiosity I would even support, and I've been there, and I think it's very valuable because it's an expression of value rather than a request to satisfy my own needs.
I agree with you completely. Again, one could go into the neurology, that doesn't matter. The bottom line is what we're about to discuss is for those people who have it in them to look within, even though it may seem scary at first, and we will discuss how to do this, to go beyond to a different place. So this is really, I'm setting this up front because otherwise some people say, yeah, but this is not for everyone. Perhaps, I don't know, but I'm just putting it up front so that we know what we're dealing with.
Perfect. Let's do this.
Okay. So generally, and now I'm going to give you a general frame, and then perhaps if you want to play the guinea pig again, we can have that. Generally, what happens is things that really bother us, they don't bother us for 5 minutes or 20 minutes. The feeling of anxiety or the bad feeling or whatever you want to call it stays with us for a long period of time. In fact, in most cases, it's been with us, I know for myself now, for years before I had the chance to look at it. Okay, so most people, the kind of stuff we're talking about, the real anxiety, the real fear, the stuff that's really, keeps the mind focused, is not a quick thing. It's not something that, I didn't pay that fine, I must pay it, and you pay it and it's over. That we're not talking about that. We're talking about something deeper. Now, generally what happens when a person's in that stage, the first thing they want to do is get rid of the bad feeling. They want to, get rid of this thing. And I'm saying, wait. Let's change that. Remember the model we had, half a brain, limbic system, associated brain, the loop, activating the front part of the brain and all that. So let's apply that method. And the method goes like this. If I'm in a state of anxiety, typically the way I know about it is it exists in my body somewhere. Okay? So if I say to somebody, you're feeling anxious? Yes. Where do you feel it? The first reaction is, I don't know, it's everywhere. I say, wait, hang on. Let's explore this. Is it in your feet? Oh, no. Okay, is it in your knees? No. Is it in your abdomen? A little bit. Oh, it's in my chest. In other words, you have to guide the attention to where the actual epicenter, the real intensity of this feeling lives. It can be anywhere. It can be in the chest, it can be in the head, it can be anywhere. I'm just saying. So the first step to awaken the front part of the brain is to ask the questions that are such as to bring the attention on the experience. In other words, we are decoupling the attention from the associated brain and bringing it back into the limbic system, in the feeling, okay? And we do that by asking questions, where is it, and so on. Once we've got a general place, it's in my chest, for example, then we might add further questions. Now remember, it's a feeling. So we have to be careful to be asking kinesthetic or feeling questions. Okay, so this feeling you're describing, is it heavy? Is it light? So you want to describe, in other words, you want more detail about the experience or the feeling itself. This is the tricky part, because the person who's experiencing the feeling, they're not enjoying it. Now you're telling them to look at it closer. Most people find that difficult. Okay? Nevertheless, I'm giving you the theory. We can, if we have a moment, we'll do the practice in it as well. You have to persist. And there's a number of ways you can do that. You can, first of all, bring to their attention that they are not in control of this feeling. Because if they were, they could switch it off. So typically, therefore, it's a case of, okay, this is something which you have no control over. So let's find out what it is. So we're changing the paradigm from we want to get rid of it to one of we want to investigate it. What is this thing? And then we can even ask questions like, hey, what are you? Who are you? What are you doing here? What's your purpose? This is the technical approach.
So let me stop you right there.
And what is its purpose? Yeah.
Yeah, let me stop you right there. So one thing I usually say, you know, in my language is that I make friends with what bothers me, you know, with the parts of me I don't like. So, you know, that's kind of the thing you're talking about, like, you know, making friends with the things that I don't like about myself, or that I don't like that are in myself. Now, you make a jump, you know, because one thing is to see if it's heavy or if it's light or what it is or how does it feel. And another thing is to talk with it. Now, where did you make that jump? You know, because one thing is to talk about it, and then another thing is to talk with it. Now, when do you make that jump?
Exactly. Now, what is really important is this. If I say, I'm just going to embrace it, that it's a vague term. What do you mean embrace it? This thing is burning me. It's like a fire in my chest. What must I embrace? As opposed to, perhaps as a more gradual approach, to say, wait a minute, let's look at it properly. In most cases, not all cases, but in most cases, it becomes visual. In other words, the feeling suddenly takes a shape. It can be round or square or whatever it is. And it can have colors. It can be red as fire or whatever. Okay. The point of the matter is we want to continue amplifying the amount of detail that we are experiencing in order to make it real enough to get a response. This is the key. The outcome here is to get a response. What is the response? If you talk to it, sometimes you get words back, do this or that or the other, but most often you don't. What in fact you do, if you tell a person, look at this feeling, describe it in detail, and after minutes of description, doesn't happen quickly. Sometimes there are long pauses of silence, okay? This is not a quick thing, it takes some time. The feeling starts to change. Generally, it diminishes, it becomes smaller. So as you pay attention to it, it starts to respond by changing shape, let's say. At that point, the attention, the person, whatever, you need to follow and see where is it leading you to. I don't know if you remember that old movie Lassie, that dog used to bark, woof, woof, come, and the dog used to take you somewhere. Similarly, this feeling wants to take your attention to a place where its intention will be fulfilled. We're calling that the flow state, the whatever it is, doesn't matter. It's where you want to be.
So one thing, so now, basically, just a point of clarification here. So you're saying that by exploring it and defining it and and follow is morphing, it will tell you what it is about. It will tell you what it is about in the sense of it will indicate a way to take care of it.
Yes. Let me put this in context in a more scientific type of way, right? Whatever memories, whatever impressions, whatever we have stored, which has defined this current situation as a problem, okay? The way this thing is communicated from a deep unconscious or subconscious level is through a feeling. The kinesthetic is the message. It's like an alarm. You have a house, the alarm goes off. What's the problem? Well, let's find out what the problem is, okay? Now, this is different from most people running away, going to see a doctor, swallowing pills to suppress the alarm, right? I'm saying don't suppress the alarm. The alarm has a purpose. What is the purpose? Let's find out.
Yes.
Now, to find out what the reason that this feeling is there, obviously the trigger is outside. We're talking about internally, the interpretation side. That reason is hidden. it's in some deep subconscious or unconscious state. We're not going to be able to see it quickly, but the feeling is the guide. It's like, say you're walking down a street and you smell something with there must be a good restaurant here, and you follow the smell and it takes you to the restaurant. It's that kind of approach. What happens is, in the process of paying attention to this experience or this feeling, by doing it, in other words, inside processes take place which unravel whatever needs to be revealed.
All right. Now,
I'll give an example.
Yeah.
I can give an example if you want.
Yeah, please.
2 days ago, I have this routine every morning. I go and stand in the sun and do some breathing and so on. If you do breathing, deep breathing, you activate your brain. It's like a kick in the pants, actually. And in that moment, for whatever reason, I found myself having an experience which was from my early childhood, something I didn't like. So I found myself, feeling like exactly what we're talking about. Knowing all this, I said, great stuff. Let's find out what's going on. As I went into it, I discovered there was an image that came up of a young boy who was in a difficult situation. So this image was an actual movie. It was a video, right? Remember the structure. There's a feeling. You follow the feeling. What happens is the video starts playing. What's the video? There's myself, younger, at the age of 10 approximately, in a very difficult situation. Okay. Now, because I'm watching this video, I now have the opportunity to interact with it. And so, strangely enough, in this particular context, I went and had a conversation with a young guy. I gave him instructions that he needed to get around his problem. I know this is all mental stuff, but watch the final result. Suddenly, this little fellow had enough, let's call it ability, as if I was his mentor, right, to deal with whatever was bothering him at the time. Immediately, he, in the video, felt confident. He felt settled. His anxiety was gone. And guess what? So was mine. So this is an example of how this feeling took me, metaphorically speaking, activated, if you like, a video of a memory which was sitting, lurking somewhere in my brain, okay, of a younger me, as it were, stuck in a place of inaptitude, unable to function, which was remedied by adding on what was required.
That's perfect.
In doing so, the young man solved his problem. He felt better. I felt better. Problem solved.
Wow, that's incredible and interesting. Now, for the sake of time, we should close the video now. But can we make the next one something like we go through and we show what we're talking about, because we gave all the information.
Yes.
And maybe the next one we will go right into it and work it through, maybe with me, or we can do
Absolutely.
it whatever you want.
It would be better if we can play the game together, if you can volunteer, in other words.
Sure.
We can do this. It's much easier if people see it than me describing it.
Sure. Okay. So next video, we're going to do that. For now, I say goodbye, keep safe, keep strong, and we'll see you soon.